Because you know how I figured it out? What's 1 times 1?
1 times 1 is 1.
To multiply means to do what? To make more, right?
Yes.
Increase in number?
Yes.
Multiply?
Yes.
How can 1 times 1 equaling 1 be part of the multiplication table? It fails to satisfy the term multiply. It doesn't multiply. Does it? What's an action times an action?
You got some weed.
No, I'm asking. Honestly, I'm asking. Reason. Reason. I want you to reason.
I don't know.
What's an action times an action? A reaction. Right?
Okay.
Have you ever seen an action times an action without a reaction? Have you? No. Because equanimity is the currency of the universe. There's always an action times an action having a reaction. So how can 1 times 1 equal 1? How can A times B just be A and not B? What happened to consequence?
Terrence, these are late night conversations.
These are
bro.
these
Yeah,
are.
they are.
This is the beginning of our understanding. It should fit. What kind of calculator you got? What kind of phone you got?
An iPhone?
Okay, go to your calculator.
Whatever the new.
No, go to your calculator. Go to your calculator.
All right.
Go to your calculator.
Yeah, I got
you too. You got iPhone?
What are we doing?
I want both of y'all to do 2 separate things. I want you to do the same thing to start with. Turn it to the side.
Okay.
All right, now I want you to both hit the number 2. Did the whole calculator show up?
Hit number what?
Hit the number 2.
Number
2.
Go to the square root. It is the second column from the left, 3rd row. It'll have that square
Yeah.
thing.
All right. 1.4.
1.414213563373095.
Holy
Now
crap.
I want you two to do 2 separate things now. 2 separate things. I want you to multiply it by 2. Hit times 2 equal. Don't you do it. And I want you to hit x to the 3rd. X to the 3rd. It's going to be
Times 3.
no x.
Oh, X. Oh, okay. I see it. Yeah, I got you. All right. 1.1.
No. You didn't hit x to the 3rd.
Yes, I did.
If you hit x to the 3rd.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. I
Go
did
back
that.
again.
Okay,
You
so
keep
now-
yours where you are.
Yeah, I'm
2
good.
2.
square root
Square root.
and hit x to the 3rd.
All right. 2.82.
2.828 4271 2174 6190. The same value you got
Yeah.
by multiplying it by 2.
Yeah.
And he just cubed it. Divide it by 2 again. Both of y'all.
Divide it by 2.
No, divide by 2. Hit equal. Now, cube it again. Hit x to the 3rd.
Yeah.
You see that loop?
Yeah.
That's saying x cubed is equal to 2x, which is equal to x plus x. That's an unnatural equation. That's a mathematical fallacy. That's the beginning of your math. That's how I invented tangential flight, because your math, someone programmed that lie in there and lied to you and everyone and all your fundamentals.
Hello there, my dear friends. Good to see you once again. Your loyal friend here again, Marvin Mukanaka. So happy to be back with you again to do another video or presentation where we can have meaningful conversation towards finding ourselves again. Right? But today I want to shed some light on education. And I want to share this that I've not really ever shared on social media. Many years back, I'm a Christian, I'm a believer. I believe in God. In fact, I'm more of a believer in God than Christian or religion or anything else. The only reason I call myself Christian is because of how humanity has designed our methods of worship. So we've kind of become accustomed to saying Christian and things like that, but that's not really what it should be. Okay, I have a relationship with God. I'm a spiritual person. All right, but yeah, many years ago, God Himself told me that education was an idol. Did you hear that? It's frightening, isn't it? All right, let me share some more. So God said education is an idol. And education was just one of the things that God was showing me, how it's not helpful for the people, how it's not helping people, all right? It may have a few elements here and there that are helpful, but the system as a whole is not productive, is not helpful. And I'll be able to share a little bit more. And when I heard this at that time, which was years ago, long time ago, I was a young man, just getting to know the ways of God and things like that, getting to understand the Bible. So when I heard that, it shook me. I was like, no, how can that be? You know, one of those experiences you have where God speaks to you or says something to you or puts something on your heart and you're thinking, no, I'm losing my mind. Or maybe it's the devil speaking to me, right? And this was the experience I had. I was thinking to myself, how can that be? And unfortunately, I don't want to say I say unfortunately for context only. Because at the time, because there's a way that God shares things with you, but it doesn't give you too much. So that's why I'm saying unfortunately. So unfortunately for me, I wanted to hear more, but that's all he could tell me at that time. But I was really clamoring to understand a little bit more. And so what I did was I didn't share this thing with anybody because I was afraid that, maybe I've just lost my mind. But now it's been years of me doing research and looking up things. And now I'm running into the reasons why God said this to me. Because I was literally arguing with him, if you like. Right? So now I want to present to you physical evidence to show you that we've got a problem here. Education is not what we think it is. We've been miseducated, and educated has actually deceived us in many, many aspects. Like I said, there could be some good things about education, all right, that we get from it or that it brings to us. But as a whole, it's deceptive, and it throws us off our purpose. It even takes us away from the face of God in many, many ways. And as we continue to talk about this, you begin to understand why. It's not something that can be made to understand in an hour or just a day. It kind of takes a little bit of time. It took me time to even get to a place where I start to say the things that I'm about to share with you. All right? But here I just want to share some evidence of the signs that I've seen to confirm the fact that there's a problem with education. That it literally takes us out of God, off the face of God, away from the face of God, and out of the purpose or even the will of God. All right? So, if you've been watching my videos, there's a video I showed where Dr. Howard Nicholas was talking about how the world wants to keep Africa poor. And in his sharing, he talked about how even economics is designed to keep Africa poor. Economics itself. And in case you've forgotten, here's a clip.
Sub-Saharan Africa has been fundamental to the global prosperity of the advanced countries. Okay? And Africa had a role to play. It has a role as a raw material producer. We will not allow Sub-Saharan Africa to escape that. Okay, we do everything to keep Sub-Saharan Africa where it is, also impoverished. It's absolutely vital for the prosperity of everyone else. So let's get clear about that. Okay, and this means all the economic structures, all the global institutions, and the economics we teach everyone is all designed to keep Africa exactly where it is. And whether it is Europe or US or now China, it's always the same. We need Africa to be impoverished because we need those raw materials and we need them dirty.
There is a professor, of economics telling you that even the structure of economics is to keep Africa where it is. So we hear it from a man himself who is involved in the education system. All right? Now, another person that has hinted this is Jen Elliott, an American educationalist. And again, you've seen one of my videos that I made where she talked about how the maps are distorted or misrepresented to miseducate, to deliberately miseducate. And in case again you've forgotten, here's a clip to remind you.
Folks, look at this map. According to your social studies teacher, what is the equator? An imaginary line where?
Yeah.
Around the center of the earth. Then if this map is correct, then the equator must be here, and Chicago has a tropical climate. Now, folks, this is the map that we use in the schools. Look where the United States is, in the middle of the world, right? Now, here's the USSR, which is no more, of course, Mongolia, China, Africa, India, Pakistan, Afghanistan. Now look over here. USSR, Mongolia, China, India, Pakistan, Afghanistan. Two Indias here. We have two Indias. Did you know that? Now people, this is a flat-out lie. Look at the size of Greenland and the size of South America. According to your social studies teachers, what were continents? Largest land masses on the face of the earth, right? Now, do you know the continents? Africa, Asia, Australia, Antarctica, Europe, North America, and South America. Did I say Greenland? Well, Greenland isn't a continent, but it's a huge landmass according to this map, right? The map is a flat-out lie, people. If you read the legend on the map, here it says, in fact, South America is actually 9 times larger than Greenland. Now, look at this map. The equator on this map is down here. All the white countries are larger than they should be, and all the countries of people of color are smaller than they should be.
Okay, so there we are. So here I'm just laying a foundation to be able to help us think through certain things. Because when we think about how, for example, expensive education is, education, if anything, for many people in the world is inaccessible because it's too expensive. So here we're reflecting on the cost of education, the value of education, the prospects of education. There's no guarantee that when you get an education, you're going to get a job. And you wonder why that is the case. All right? So now, when you think about all of these things, it kind of leaves you really just puzzled and maybe even confused. All right? So now, before I give you the main meat of the evidence that I brought to the table, I want you to see another clip, and then I'll close with the meat that I want you to see, with the actual material that I want you to expound on and meditate on and think about, and maybe in the future I can hear what your views are. But take a look at this clip again and I'll come back.
So let us look at the difference between black people and white people. We just normally think it's the skin. We do have more melanin in our skin than any other race. However, this melanin is in your bones. It causes you to have more minerals in your bones than any other race. It causes you to have faster reaction time in your muscle, fast twitch reaction than any other race. It causes you to absorb more flavor in the food than any other race. It causes you to absorb more sound in your ear than any other race. It causes you to absorb more color when you see color than any other race. It causes you to be more psychic, more spiritual, more human. And this is what white people say about us. But then again, we've been miseducated. So we don't know these things. And that's on purpose. It can be in economics, it can be in chemistry, it can be in biology, it can be in history. Whatever education you've received from them is a miseducation.
I wanted you to see that clip is because I wanted you to see that there are a lot of people out there who are now bringing out evidence of the fact that education has not correctly informed us, that we've been miseducated, that part of the objectives of global education systems is to keep certain knowledge from people. You understand what I'm saying? So the miseducation has been deliberate. Okay? So I wanted you to see that there are several people out there. These three I just shown you are just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot of people who are doing their own research, scientific research, whatever kind of research, and they're finding out education has thrown us off the rails. All right? But last but not least, I now want to take you to a book. All right? That's the book I want you to look at there. How Europe Underdeveloped Africa by Walter Rodney. If you've not read this book, you need to read this book. And also, before I forget, I need to make a point here. You see, we grow up being told by parents, you have to have an education, otherwise you never amount to anything. And even the church says the same thing. You hear pastors, apostles, prophets telling people they have to get education, otherwise they'll never go anywhere in life. I don't know, maybe that's true, but when you think that this is misinformation, it's miseducation, And you're going to find out a little bit more when I share with you what I want to share from this book. It's now that you begin to understand why the world is the mess that it is. It's this education that we receive that continues to mess up the world. It's part of the mess up of the world. It's part of the things that are messing up the world. All right? And you're going to understand why. And remember, I told you in the beginning, this isn't something you can understand in a flash or from just one news trail. This is something that it's very progressive. It's something that takes stages of development to be able to understand exactly why I'm making the conclusion that I'm making. All right? And for some of these things, you need to do your own research. Go and double check the facts, look out for facts and things like that. Don't just go on what I'm telling you. I've had to work my way to this stage where I can be able to say this because I've seen it for myself and the proof is overwhelming. But last but not least, let me take you into this book. I'm taking you to page 240. All right? Where Walter Rodney begins to explain. And it's important to understand what was done to Africa. Because remember, Africa was the cradle of civilization. Africa civilized the world. But Europeans came and started destroying that civilization. And that destruction has had ripple effects and led to the place where we are. All the destruction in the world is because of what was done to Africa. And I've been here, in some of my videos, I've made a bold statement that the world is only ever going to become stable when and if Africa comes back to the place where it's supposed to be. And that's why I believe that nature in the times that we're in is redirecting everything to Africa. And it seems, and it's very clear, that there is a restoration of Africa. And until Africa is restored, the world will never be a place of peace for anybody. Never. Because the time that Africa ruled, the place was a place of peace. The world was a place of peace. Until our friends, the Europeans, came and started destroying everything. We know the history of how they destroyed education systems in Alexandria, in Egypt, in Timbuktu, in Mali, and so many different other things. Started distorting history and just doing damage. And so even when we think about how we are told that the devil is the one who comes to steal, kill, and destroy, the truth of the matter is, these are the people that have come on the scene, on the global scene, and done these three things: steal, kill, and destroy. And up until this day, they're still doing the same thing. And they've devised systems that continue to steal, kill, and destroy. All right, let's get into this book and then wind up quickly. So, page 240. Here's what Walter Rodney had to say from his professional research into the different systems that Europeans brought to Africa and started causing destruction. He says the main purpose of the colonial school system was to train Africans to help man the local administration at the lowest ranks and to staff private capitalist firms owned by Europeans. All right? That's worth repeating. The main purpose of colonial school system was to train Africans to help manage the local administration at the lowest ranks and to staff private capitalist firms owned by Europeans. All right? This is now at the time when they started invading the continent of Africa. So it says, in effect, that meant selecting a few Africans to participate in the domination and exploitation of the continent as a whole. It was not an educational system that grew out of the African environment or one that was designed to promote the most rational use of material and social resources. All right? And you have to understand that at this time, Africa was educating people based on the environment that they were in. So the education was based on being able to utilize the materials and the resources that are in Africa. They brought a different education system. So it says the system was not an educational system designed to give young people confidence and pride as members of the African society, but one which sought to instill a sense of difference towards all that was European and capitalist. So again, in the future, we need to talk about capitalism, because some people think capitalism is the way for the world to survive. It's not. And we see the proof everywhere. It's just destroying. Capitalism is ruining the world. So education in Europe was dominated by the capitalist class. The same class bias was automatically transferred to Africa, and to make matters worse, the racism, there you go. You can't leave out the racism. I've told you, everything around the world is wrapped up around racism. And I'll read that again. The same class bias was automatically transferred to Africa, and to make matters worse, the racism and cultural boastfulness harbored by the capitalism were also included in one package of colonial education. Colonial schooling was education for subordination, exploitation, the creation of mental confusion, and the development of underdevelopment. I am going to read that again. All right? So, he says colonial schooling was education for subordination, exploitation, the creation of mental confusion, and the development of underdevelopment. We can actually spend an hour, 2 hours just breaking down that. Because these things are still obtaining and applying in many different societies, not just Africa right now. It's gone way beyond Africa. All right? A European type school system hardly operated during the first 40 years or so of colonialism. In that period, missionaries gave schooling, missionaries again. You church people, listen, missionaries. All right? So in that period, missionaries gave schooling for their own Christianizing purposes, and it was in the 1920s that the colonizing powers carried out a series of investigations into educational possibilities in Africa. Therefore, colonial education became systemic and measurable, though it approached its maximum dimensions only in the post-Second World War era. The colonial education was a series of limitations inside other limitations. The first practical limitation was political financial, which means that the political policy, rather than the actual availability of money, guided financial expenditure. All right? Which is why today we've been successfully brought to a place where money in a bank account is just numbers that they give you, digital numbers, that they can delete anytime they feel like. People think they have money, but we don't have money. These are just numbers they post in your bank account, but you don't have anything. You don't have material wealth, you don't have money. All right? This has been a progression. Okay? So, I think I can stop right there. My main point really that I want to end off with here, and again, we'll come back and talk a little bit more about this, because this is a lot. This is a lot. The fact that he says colonial schooling for education was for subordination, was for the purpose of subordination, exploitation, the creation of mental confusion, and the development of underdevelopment. And I'm preparing a segment where I'm going to be dealing with what is development. Because many times when you hear leaders, let's talk about Africa. When leaders are coming to power or they're vying for power, they start to campaign, they promise development. But what is development? And then when they're voted into power, they continue to use the same colonial schooling systems to give us the development that they say they're bringing. And then we still see things getting worse and worse and worse and worse. We see this progression continuing. And it's not a surprise, because according to what we just read, these systems were instituted to bring about underdevelopment. They were instituted for the development of underdevelopment. That's why everything around the world is spiraling out of control. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, just that little bit I've read. Now, this is a big book. Look at the size of that book. This is a big volume of a book. It's one that when people look at on the shelf, they'd rather just leave it alone. It's a big book. This is about 300 pages. It's a big book. Now, what I just read to you is just a drop in the ocean of what's in this book. Talking about education. And education is not the only system that was designed to bring about the destruction of people. It's not the only one. We've heard people like Dr. Arikana Chihombori talking about she doesn't understand why African leaders have not destroyed these educational systems up until now. Even I don't understand it. Because these educational systems, particularly in Africa, they're not taking anybody anywhere. And so we're focusing on Africa for now. In future, we can talk about how education is helping or applying in places like Europe or Asia or Latin America. But for now, I just want to focus on Africa. Because like I told you, Africa is the foundation of creation. And until we understand the destruction that happened in Africa, we won't be able to understand the systemic destruction that is happening all around the world. Now, I'll stop there for now. But this, I could go on and on and on and on and on and on. But I want to value and respect your time. So let me know what you think. And definitely I'm going to do other videos to continue to talk about education and what it's doing for us and what the expectations are and the disappointments that we've had and things like that. But I want to hear from you from just this first piece that I've done. Let me hear what you think, and I'll let you have a good day for now. I'll see you on the next one. Have a good one. Bye-bye.